to Propeller, to this video. We hope it's going to be of great use to parents helping their children. And I'm joined today by Oliver Rossetti. Oliver, thank you very much for joining us today. It would be great if you could just give us a brief intro on your good self.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me. So I'm Oliver Rossetti. I work at the University of Leicester as the outreach manager. So I go across the country to many schools, giving sort of careers advice to all sort of ages of pupils, right from sort of primary age all the way up to kind of mature students of over 21 years of age. I've worked across several universities now across sort of the Midlands, so kind of have learned quite a lot over sort of the last 10 years or so, and I've gone through university myself, sort of done a degree and sort of done part-time postgrad in careers guidance as well. So I've experienced different sides of sort of higher education.
Fantastic. Well, look, we're really glad to have you today. I mean, the primary audience for Propeller are parents that want to help their children, help them make the most important decision of obviously leaving school. Should they go to university, and if so, what? So I think your guidance is going to be so useful for this. When you visit a school, what are the sort of the top 2 or 3 things that you try and impart to school children?
Really good question. The top thing I think I probably always say in most conversations is something I was told, probably talking about 15 years ago now, but I think it's still true to today, is you've got to visit a university, and you've whether it's a university that even does your course, if it's the one down the road, then go and visit and get a feel of what it's like to be at university. But the thing that I was always told is actually when you go to an open event, an offer holder day, an open day, etc., actually, if it feels right when you're there, so if you as a parent, guardian, or and a young person that you're kind of helping advise, if they feel like it's just the right place for them, they've got that gut instinct, they can see themselves there, for the next 3 years, it may well be a longer course, can take a lot longer than that. Then that's a really key indicator. I don't think you can get away from that gut feeling. So really kind of listen to your gut. I think it's probably one of the key things I always say to any kind of student I'm advising.
What would be a really good question, bearing in mind, as you say, you've worked for a couple of universities, is just to get an idea of what you think makes a good university. I mean, I would suggest, obviously that's pretty subjective and depends upon the student, so the parent is going to have to take that into account. But do you have any views on that?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a sort of open-ended question, isn't it? In what does make a good university? I think from experience, the idea of community is something that, to be honest, I didn't hugely kind of appreciate how important that is to making it a good university. And I've been in some universities. I mean, I've probably fair to say I've been to quite a number of different universities for meetings, etc. So I've gained quite a good idea across the country. And there are some universities that I'm afraid to say are quite cold feeling, and for some people that actually works. But then there are also some universities where I've walked kind of from one end of the campus to the other when sort of students are just starting out, and you'll see people just helping each other locate what rooms they're going to be in, and they're kind of helping with the timetables, and that really that's just amazing to just witness and see. And I think that's really what makes a good university, is if it feels right when you're there for an open event where everybody's helping you, they're there with a smile. It could be absolutely chucking it down with rain, but if they're there still smiling and they're there to help you get all the information that you can, that's a really good sign of a university that's going to be there to support when things are doing amazingly well, and your young person's winning awards, and then perhaps those times where perhaps your young person's faced with a difficult assignment or trying to juggle a part-time job, etc. So I think that's really something to kind of look out for, is that community feel, and that ultimately is what makes a good university, is what I've kind of witnessed.
And would you say that University of Leicester scores very highly in that regard?
putting my current job aside, actually I have to say yes.
Oh, well, there you go.
So yeah, it's I mean, it literally was I mean, it was about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it was that point that I actually witnessed several people kind of helping sort of the new students find what lecture theatre they're in or whereabouts it was, and that was just really nice to see, particularly after kind of the long couple of last difficult years of the pandemic, just to witness that. It kind of, yeah, it brings a little bit of warmth to your heart and realise why you're there.
Fantastic. And bearing in mind that universities are ranked so thoroughly, should students take these rankings into account?
Yes, that's a good question. Rankings are very, very subjective. It's how you as a parent, guardian, and as a young person interpret them. They all, like you were saying, is that they all use a different algorithm. They all use a bit of a slightly different criteria. So for example, the Guardian league table doesn't necessarily take as into account sort of the research side of universities than perhaps the Times Higher Education league table. So that's just a very quick kind of look at two of them, but there's loads. You've got the QS World Rankings, you've got the Complete University Guide, National Student Survey. I mean, I could reel off loads.
Yes.
Whether you take them into account, I always advise to look at the subject specific sort of breakdown of that league table. So what you'll find is a lot of the league tables, you can go online, they'll have sort of various filters, and actually you can choose, instead of just overall, you can filter down to business, to psychology, to finance, all the individual ones. And what you'll find, and it's fascinating to have a look into it, is those universities that you'll typically find right at the top, and I can guarantee anyone watching this will easily be able to reel off the first couple of top universities that tend to be at the top of every league table. But are they actually good for your course? Is Oxbridge going to be the best for your drama course that you're really interested in, etc.? So I think encouraging a young person to not just have a quick glance at a league table and go, oh, right, they're at the top, so that's who I'm going to apply for. Actually look down on the course level. What's also the criteria you're really interested in? Is it the employability? Is it things like student satisfaction? I always advise student satisfaction is a really good indicator, because it's young people just like your own young person that is actually going through that course at the same time. And they're the people that are then reporting back in their final years. So that's one metric I always say to have a look at, is the student satisfaction.
That I think that's really, that helps distill it down, doesn't it? Because you've got the university rankings, so check the course, and then, as you say, the course will appear at different rankings in different output, if you like, but at least it will give you a view. And if you're looking then at course satisfaction as a metric, that'll then help you as a parent will be able to help your young person work out, or your child work out, what the next stage is. Okay, thank you. I mean, so one of the things that you haven't mentioned yet is to whether you as a parent or as a student, should they be trying to steer towards a Russell Group style university or a red brick? I mean, do you have any views on that?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. The Russell Group being, there's about 24 universities that make that up, and it is typically seen as kind of an elite group of universities that do kind of a lot of pioneering research. And they typically sort of have higher entry requirements, and are kind of seen typically near at the top of rankings. But again, thinking about subject specific, may not always be the best for your subject. I think with the Russell Group, and I get asked this question many a times from kind of teachers, parents, and students. I think I wouldn't use it personally as, a yes or no, you've got to be in a Russell Group university or not. Like you mentioned, there's other groups of universities which all have their different merits of working together. The Russell Group is primarily, it's actually about the research that they do. So they'll get research bids kind of provided to them, and they'll kind of work and collaborate together around the research side. And the reason why I emphasize the research side is because the research is very different to the teaching side for your young person. So
yes,
it will absolutely, no doubt, inspire the kind of curriculum and the modules that they're learning. And I think that's something to consider. And if they carry on in that university and move up into sort of postgraduate level and beyond, then more than likely they will get involved in the research at the university at quite a high caliber of research. So something definitely consider. I know I met a student literally a couple of weeks ago who was really interested in kind of maths, engineering, and actually the more we delve down, I actually realised actually they'd be really suited to more of a research career because they were just fascinated about innovating new ideas and theories behind mathematics. So I think having that conversation about actually where does your young person want to go in life? Do they want to be working in a big city firm in London in sort of kind of the legal sector or finance? Then actually Russell Group sits really well with being connected to those big name employers. But on the other hand, you're then thinking about kind of the university experience. They're normally really large universities, and a common kind of misconception is they get lots of funding, but that funding's for research in a particular area. Typically, sciences is one. So that money will go towards those facilities, but again, it might not go towards the English department, for example.
Well, I think that's a very, very useful session. Oliver, I think we're going to be running out of time, but thank you so much for your input and your views. Incredibly useful. We look forward to working with you in the future. And thanks again for being part of this podcast. It's very kind.
No, thank you very much for having me. It's been fantastic. Thank you.